What is going on, everybody? This is High Floor Football Live, and we are live every 2 weeks on Sunday from 11:30 to 12:15 to take your start sits questions, answer news and notes from around the league, injuries, talk some prop bets. We are here. My name is Sam Wagman. I am your host, and with me, as always, for these episodes is my buddy, my Eagles fan. We are ready for the season to start. Jay Arsh, what's up, my brother?
What is up? I will be a little bit quieter than I was when I first hopped on this Zoom, but I am excited. We are all excited. Football season is here, and excited to answer start sits. Excited to just talk about football. I mean, it is so much different. It feels so much different when we're actually going to see the results today instead of having to sit here and guess on things that are a couple weeks away. So I am excited, just as I'm sure you are, and everybody else. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we've waited all off season for this. Like I said on a show earlier this week, it is time to put the takes aside, and it is time to see which of those takes make sense and which of those takes goes up in a pile of flames, just about. So we're going to start this off while we wait for some people to filter in here and ask us some start sit questions. We'll take some time and go over some of the news and notes that I wanted to talk about. But first of all, the George Kittle injury. Kittle strained his groin earlier this week, was ruled out for this contest, possibly the next couple contests. So, Jay, in place of George Kittle, who are you looking to target on the waiver wire if you have him, in your redraft leagues?
Some of the later tight ends. I mean, like Gerald Everett is a good option. Even like a Mo Alley Cox, depending on how deep your league is. David Njoku, someone I like as well. Cole Kmet, probably someone who's rostered at least as a backup on most teams. But I'm thinking of David Njoku, Gerald Everett, Mo Alley Cox, guys that I think have like high touchdown upside. Mo Alley Cox on Indianapolis playing at Houston. Gerald Everett playing Las Vegas, which I expect to just be a high scoring game. So I would like to, get pieces in the Las Vegas Chargers game. And then David Njoku playing at Carolina. That game just became a pick 'em over the past couple days. Supposed to be kind of an ugly game. So, I mean, I don't love investing in pieces on the Browns offense, but it seems like it's a pretty narrow target tree. Outside of Amari Cooper, I do expect David Njoku to be the second option there. So Njoku, Everett, Mo Alley Cox are three of the options that I would look at.
Yeah, I want to toss one more in there, and I tweeted about this last night. Hunter Henry had the seventh most red zone targets in the NFL. The Miami Dolphins were one of the 10 worst teams against the tight end position last year, and those two square off today. I think the Patriots offense is, kind of similar to the Browns and the Panthers, kind of a mess, but I think Hunter Henry is probably the only consistent option there, especially with Jacoby Myers trending towards an inactive today, depending on how he feels towards game time. But as far as reliability, there really isn't much on the Patriots, especially with Patricia and Joe Judge coaching. But we did see Hunter Henry utilized a ton last year. He tied for the league lead in touchdowns among tight ends with 9. So, I mean, it feels like him and Mac Jones should be on a good connection early on in that game.
Yeah, I like that call. No. I think it's a good one. I actually did see you tweet about it, so I made sure to keep him out of my guys I was going to mention there. What other things? What else are you excited about today? What are some of your favorite matchups? I mean, the highest over-under of the day is the Kansas City Arizona game at an over-under of 54. So we expect a lot of points there. Any other games that you're really excited about today?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at the Chargers and Raiders game that goes off later. And I think that game is actually going to be the highest score on the slate. J.C. Jackson is out for the Chargers, and the Raiders secondary is nothing to write home about. So for me, I think Devontae Adams sees a ton of targets, like probably in the 15 to 17 range. As he and Derek Carr finally get the show on the road for their long overdue kind of debut together on the same team once again after being together at Fresno State years and years and years ago. I also think that Renfro and Waller are great plays today, as well as the Chargers were one of the worst teams against the tight end last year as well. And then Renfro just seemed to dominate almost every single matchup that he faced last year. So alongside that, the Chargers as well are one of the best passing offenses in the league last year. And I think Mike Williams and Keenan Allen absolutely dominate this game. So we're going to see what happens there. The Raiders went through a little bit of shuffling, along their offensive line. Their offensive might start out slow, but again, I'm not in the business of fading Devontae Adams. I like to play good players. I think all of those guys, that should be like a 60, 65 point game to me. And I think that's the barn burner of this week.
Yeah, I mean, the narrative, 2-3 years ago, I guess around 2 years ago when right before Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins switched teams. I mean, the narrative was you want to stay away from wide receivers that just moved to a new team. I think that Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins kind of nipped that in the bud for these top receivers. Some of these guys are so good, and when they do have chemistry, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins didn't really have chemistry with Kyler Murray prior to going to Arizona. Stephon Diggs did not have that sort of chemistry with Josh Allen prior to going to Buffalo, aside from them becoming best friends, it seemed like, in the first week. But Devontae Adams and Derek Carr, although it was 10 years ago, do have some sort of chemistry together. So I agree with you. I'm not as concerned about him being on a new team necessarily. It should be a high-scoring game and a high-scoring offense, and he should be the focal point. Some of my favorite bets this week, I mean, I kind of hate to be picking all on the road, but some of my favorite ones, I mean, Baltimore giving 6.5 to the Jets. I like that one. I think Baltimore's going to come out hungry this year. I mean, everyone's talking about their lack of wide receivers. We're both big Rashad Bateman guys. So I don't really think that's as big of a worry. Mark Andrews healthy. We'll see how Isaiah Likely's used, but I like Baltimore giving 6.5. Some of the other ones, I like the Eagles. The Eagles, no surprise, no bias here necessarily. I just think the Eagles are coming into the season pretty ready. Hopefully they didn't take any of that rat poison like Jalen Hurts was saying. But Eagles giving 5.5 at Detroit, one of my other favorites. And Denver, which, I think we're all kind of on Denver and Russell Wilson's return to Seattle, giving 6.5 points. Denver is just a, substantially better team. We expect, Russ going back for his reunion. And then I like the Kansas City giving 6.5 over Arizona. That spread has moved throughout the week. I believe it started at like 4.5. Now it's at 6.5. So I like Kansas City there as well in a high scoring game.
So it probably would interest you to know that I'm actually on the Seattle side of that Denver game.
Okay.
I'm taking the Seahawks plus 6.5, and I'll look to buy it up to 7.5. And I think it'll get there on its own without me having to buy it up because money's just pouring in on the Broncos. But Pete Carroll is pretty good as a road dog, or is he?
They're at home. They're at home.
Yeah, as a home dog in week 1, he's 10-3 against the spread when he's an underdog in week 1. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think this Seattle team is a little bit better than people make it out to be. And I think these revenge games are a little bit of a misconceived notion when you think, one guy's just going to come out and hammer the other team. And look, this is the NFL. It's any given week out here. Anything can happen, which is why I'm going in for my best bet and taking the Miami Dolphins to beat the Patriots. I took this way earlier in the week at -2.5. It's since gone up to -3.5 at most books, and there's some pretty heavy juice on it as well. I'd look to buy it down as much as you possibly can, throw it in a parlay. But look, Miami wins at New England or, at home against New England. It doesn't matter. This game's usually in December when it's a lot colder in New England and it's, still kind of warm down here. This is always a trap game for New England. It was when Brady was there. It happened the same last year. The Dolphins have covered the spread in 8 of the last 9 home games against the Patriots. So this is, a pretty much every year thing for me. You take the Dolphins against the Patriots when they're home. And this is no different. The Patriots come in kind of a mess. Matt Patricia and Joe Judge are, co-offensive coordinators. That's obviously not going to work out too well. The Dolphins rolling out a whole new offense with Mike McDaniel. I think it's going to be a lot more efficient. And the Patriots lost a bunch of names as well. So I'm I'm fully buying in. I think Tua is going to show us something this year, and we'll see if it's good enough to beat Bill Belichick. Moving right along, some more news and notes. The Zach Ertz injury, I wanted to touch on a little bit. He's likely playing today. If you have him, he's probably a start for you. I feel like unless you have, another reliable guy like a Cole Kmet or a Hunter Henry or a David Njoku, I think you're kind of rolling with Zach Ertz here. And it's because, again, like you said, the Chiefs and the Cardinals is one of the high total games of the week. I think that'll be a back and forth game. Hollywood Brown should definitely see a ton of work, and Zach Ertz should be the red zone guy there. So we're going to see what happens with that game, to be specific. But I do think Zach Ertz goes, and I think he's good enough. It's notable to note that calf injuries do hold up players a little bit coming back, especially tight ends. But I think Zach Ertz is safe enough that we should see him, even if we only see him grab, 3 or 4 targets. I think they're probably more red zone heavy. Maybe they want to avoid him running as much. And I think he will have a very heavy red zone usage there.
Yeah, if he plays, I think, like you said, you probably don't have too many better options, and it's one of the highest scoring total games of the day. DeAndre Hopkins is out, Rondale Moore's out. Arizona is going to be looking for options to keep up with Kansas City, because I don't think Kansas City's offense is really going to miss a beat, so I do think Arizona is going to have to try and keep up with them. I was thinking a couple options that we could talk about, just some shaky running backs that people are probably invested in and going to have in their lineups, but have some narratives that come along with them. What about Antonio Gibson? Are you putting Antonio Gibson in your lineups today, expecting that
Yes.
Robinson's out? Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I think with Antonio Gibson, you definitely have to take into account that last year, this is essentially the same situation as the last 2 years. J.D. McKissic is the clear passing down back. Antonio Gibson is the clear workhorse early down back. And when Brian Robinson gets back, he's targeting a Week 5 return. We'll see what happens here. But we also have our first start sit question of the week. Who do I flex in PPR, Pickens or Ramondre or Brees? I would probably go with Ramondre Stevenson here. This seems like a place where Ramondre is going to get some work as the passing down back later in this game, especially if the Patriots are down. We're still operating under the assumption that both he and Damian Harris will be used as the RB1A in both scenarios. So they're probably going to switch down work. The only thing is that with that added passing down usage that they pretty much earmarked Ramondre for, even before the Ty Montgomery injury, I think he sees enough work. I'm just not confident in Breece Hall's workload yet, with Michael Carter, said to be the heartbeat of that team. And the fact that Deontay Johnson playing today, even though I think he's going to be limited, off that shoulder injury, I'm not quite ready to start Pickens with confidence yet. I would have been, this answer would have been Pickens if Deontay Johnson was out, but since it's not, I'm going to roll with Ramondre Stevenson there.
Sure. I agree. I'm going with Ramondre Stevenson as well. Same as Sam said. I want to see the George Pickens usage beforehand. With that kind of rotation with Deontay Johnson, Pickens, Claypool, I do think Deontay is still the top dog if he's healthy. So I expect him to kind of be the target monster there. They're probably going to be trailing. I would expect in the Cincinnati game. So I think Deontay is going to be the better option there. Ramondre Stevenson over Breece Hall too, just based on what Sam said. I think we have a little bit better understanding of how that split's going to work.
Yep. And similar Breece question, we're starting guys like Boyd, Marvin Jones Jr. over him. I think if you really want to, you can start both of those guys over him. I think their workloads are extremely locked in and secure at this point. We know Marvin Jones Jr. likely plays the X role in that offense or the Z, but either so, I think he's one of the 3 starting wide receivers for the Jaguars who should be throwing a lot. And also, again, Tyler Boyd, same thing. Bengals are probably going to throw the ball a lot here against a pretty weak Steelers secondary. And I think that until we know more about Breece, it's a big question mark for me. And I'm huge on Breece Hall this season. I just don't know if he gets going right away.
See, I'm not as high on Brees, I don't think, as others are, but I would start Brees this week over Tyler Boyd and Marvin Jones. I agree with what you said. I think we kind of know Marvin Jones' role and Tyler Boyd's role, but Tyler Boyd's role is probably the third, if not fourth option in the offense. And Brees Hall, as much as I don't know that we have an idea of his volume and really his role, I mean, I do think a big part of the Jets adding Brees Hall in general to this backfield with Michael Carter was that Brees Hall's a home run hitter. I mean, he's somebody that can turn any run into a big run. Something that Michael Carter does lack. So I think that even if Brees Hall is getting limited touches, he might be the one getting the goal line, and he might be the guy who's able to break off a big run in this game. Baltimore 6.5-point favorites, like we were just talking about. I think the Jets are going to be trailing often. It will be interesting to see if Michael Carter or Brees Hall is the third down back. I think that's what we're all going to be looking for. But either way, it will be a split. Michael Carter is not going to be able to handle, all the touches in that game. And I like Brees Hall more as a home run swing than Tyler Boyd or Marvin Jones.
Something I just saw came across my Twitter feed. Kenyon Drake is pretty much the locked-in starter today for the Ravens as well. So if you're starting Mike Davis, I'd take him out. I'd definitely look for Kenyon Drake to be the guy. Apart from just generally looking better than Mike Davis last year, I think that Kenyon Drake is definitely going to be much more heavily used with J.K. Dobbins unable to make it work this week.
This is an update here. Third-round running back from the San Francisco 49ers, Tyrion Davis-Price, is a healthy scratch. So Jordan Mason is active. Could be something to pay attention to.
That is, yeah. That definitely means that Jeff Wilson is definitely the backup this week, and probably sees some healthy goal line work as well.
This is the third year in a row that the Niners have done that on the morning before week one. It was Trey Sermon. I'm blanking out who it was the year before, but I believe this is the third year in a row they have put out a healthy scratch right before week one. So
I went muted first, but who'd they do that in 2020 with?
I'm trying to think. I mean, it was Trey Sermon last year, and I'm trying to think who it was the year prior. I don't know. It could have been Jeff Wilson. Who knows? I mean, they've had so many running backs like shuffle through that Kyle Shanahan typically keeps us guessing on week one how it's going to work out.
I wanted to touch on a couple other things. Chris Godwin is supposed to play today, or supposed to play tonight. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. Chris Godwin was wearing a non-contact red jersey at practice this week. We've been told all summer that Chris Godwin would not be rushed back, would not, see heavy usage in the first few weeks. I think with a team like Tampa Bay that is in the prime of a Super Bowl window, I do believe that with Chris Godwin still coming back from his ACL surgery in the offseason, that they will not rush him back. That even though if he is active, I would not recommend starting him because, one, he might be used as a decoy, and two, he's likely not going to get a full complement of snaps. So I really don't see a scenario where Chris Godwin is, one, worth it enough over, better 1 p.m. or 4 p.m. choices. You have to wait all the way till 8:30 for him tonight. And two, it just doesn't make a lot of sense from what we were told all offseason, especially in the weeks leading up to this. I at least think we would have seen him take off the non-contact jersey.
Yeah, and we heard him say some things too. I mean, Sam's probably going to laugh when I say this, but I mean, Chris Godwin's an animal. I'm a big Chris Godwin fan. When he does play, he is the wide receiver one in Tampa. That is just how it has played out over the time being there. Statistics over opinions. He has been. So when Chris Godwin's fully healthy, he is in your lineups. He's an awesome fantasy player. That being said, I think it's important to pay attention to some of the things that he said this week too. He was saying that, he has to remind himself that he has to balance his competitiveness with how ready he is. That didn't sound like somebody who's ready to go week one. Like you said, it doesn't necessarily benefit anybody for Chris Godwin to be like a full go week one. They just signed him to a long-term contract, so that's all figured out. Tampa Bay doesn't want him to get further injured. Chris Godwin, I don't think, is in any rush necessarily. They have Julio Jones. They have Russell Gage. They have options there. And, I mean, even him being active is something that, is a complete decoy for the Cowboys because Chris Godwin is that good. You have to be, aware of what's going on with him. But they have so many other options that I don't think it would be in their best interests, and I just don't think that Chris Godwin's going to be, the guy who's pushing them to, get me in the game like that. They don't really need to do that. So.
Yep. I also agree there. And then the last piece of news that I have is that Alan Lazard has been ruled out. So in places like that, who are the first guys that come to your mind that might be there to replace Allen Robinson? Do we see a healthy amount of Romeo Doubs? Do we see Randall Cobb come in? Do we see Robert Tonyan
you didn't
make
even
his
name
return?
who I'm going to talk about here, and I'm going to do it because, I'm not even going to make the jokes about week one, Sammy Watkins. Just Sammy Watkins in general is somebody who, when he came into Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers was singing his praises, saying that he looks great. Who knows what that means? We have seen Sammy Watkins look decent in spurts before in a bunch of different places, in LA and Kansas City. We've seen Sammy Watkins display it. He looks to be coming in healthy. He looks to be the wide receiver one there. I think it opens the door for Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson to get involved. But I do think that the first two options, I think it's going to be Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb, and Robert Tonyan. As boring as that sounds for us, I think for Aaron Rodgers, that's what he's most comfortable with. Mm-hmm. So I kind of think that's how it's going to play out. Could be a high-scoring game. This Minnesota offense is, supposed to come out firing. Everybody's pretty excited about them. And Green Bay is a little bit of a mystery to us, but I still think they're going to be able to work it on offense regardless of who's out there. So Sammy Watkins is the one that I'm pivoting to. In a dynasty league right now, I actually am starting Sammy Watkins, which is, funny to me. Felt a little comfortable with the rest of my lineup, so I think I could take a shot with him, but I don't think he's a terrible play today without Alan Lazard out.
Yep. And look, if you think I didn't exclude Sammy Watkins from that original list on purpose, just to see if you
I was waiting.
What I'm putting down there,
waiting.
Look, you have to be a very hateful person to besmirch week one Sammy Watkins, and then of course ceremonially drop him on Tuesday morning.
And you just hate fun, man. If this opens up for a Sammy Watkins game that you might be able to actually play him, which comes once every blue moon, so get him in there, have some fun. It's week one, so
obviously, look, David Bakhtiari is out for this game for the Packers. Their star left tackle might be out next week as well. Aaron Rodgers is going to need to get the ball out quickly against the rush defense of the Minnesota Vikings. He will look to the people that he trusts the most. Do not expect the rookies to be heavily involved in this week one game plan. The guys who I'm looking to target in order: Aaron Jones, Sammy Watkins, Robert Tonyan, and Randall Cobb. Those are the guys who I would look to see to have a big impact on this game. A.J. Dillon may also see some work in there as well. But look, it doesn't seem like the Packers are going to be, overly complicated with how they run their offense this offseason. Things change a lot with Devontae Adams, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. And the one thing that'll always stay the same to me is Aaron Rodgers will look to the guys he trusts, not people that he can't trust, especially in an important division game against the Minnesota Vikings. This will probably play in very heavily in 3 to 4 months down the line when we look and see who's jockeying for playoff position. So
give me
the veterans. Give me the veterans.
It is pissing in Chicago for this Bears-Niners game. So
it's also worth noting that there was supposed to be a ton of wind. There's not anymore. You can fire up your Cole Kmet stacks, but expect to see a lot of running. I took both Justin Fields rushing over, Trey Lance's rushing over, and Eli Mitchell's rushing over for this game. I think that ball is ran, in excess of 35, 40 times total in this game. If there's 70 plays in a game, I think we see the ball ran about 60% of the time. So, definitely look for that. There's a few starts of questions I wanted to break down that I got in my mentions. Should I start Dak Prescott versus the Bucs or Derek Carr versus the Chargers? And I think we already have the answer to this one. I'm on the Derek Carr side. What about you?
I'm also on the Derek Carr side. I think when you really start breaking it down with some of those guys, I know that Dak Prescott was still drafted right outside that top 10 quarterbacks. I know he was a guy that you were fading anyway. But, when you really look at it with Derek Carr, especially this week, Dak Prescott hasn't really run as much since he got hurt. 2 years ago. So when you balance out sort of their weapons, I mean, I think Derek Carr has better weapons to work with. He's in a game that I expect to be a little bit more high scoring. So I'm taking Derek Carr as well. I think week 1 with Devontae Adams and that crew, I'd feel more comfortable with Derek Carr.
Michael Thomas or Zeke? What do you think?
I think Zeke. I think you still play Zeke, especially week 1. We're interested to see how it works out with Tony Pollard. But I mean, everything the Cowboys were saying this offseason is they want it to go through Zeke still. And if Zeke's healthy, I mean, I think he should still be getting goal line. I think he should still be out touching Tony Pollard. Whether Tony Pollard's used more as a pass catcher and spread out wide or into the slot should be interesting for Tony Pollard. But I think the Cowboys need receiving options anyway. So I still think Zeke is the running back that you want there. And Michael Thomas, man, is just such a mystery to me. I mean, I hope he comes back fine. I hope he's ready to go. Like it seems he is. He is active. But I would feel more comfortable with Zeke this week. And if Michael Thomas is truly Michael Thomas again, I mean, you're not going to worry about starting him the rest of the season.
Did you see the video of the field in Chicago?
Oh, yeah. It is. That's what I said. It is pissing there in the Chicago field.
Oh, that doesn't even look like a field, dude.
Not taking care.
You see them running in it, and you audibly see water come up from the ground. Like, that is not good. I changed my mind. Do not play your pass catchers in Chicago, San Fran, which plays into my next start-sit question that I got. Standard scoring, sit Ayuk or Renfro. And this is a pretty clear sit Ayuk for me. I think even without the rain news, I think I'm still starting Renfro over Ayuk just for, just to like fade Trey Lance's passing this first week. But I'm still on that Renfro train, and I'm going along with the Las Vegas offense, narrative here. Do you have a different opinion?
I do. I mean, I like Hunter Renfro too. I think Hunter Renfro might have a little bit of a safer floor. Don't love the weather, obviously, that's going on in Chicago right now. But with George Kittle out, coupled with this connection of Trey Lance, Ayuk that we've heard about all offseason, now they have one less option, one less safety blanket that's out. So I like Brandon Ayuk over Renfro just because I have liked it all offseason. And, George Kittle being out week 1, I mean, kind of opens the door even more in my opinion. So.
Yep. All right. I'm going to go in and grab some start-sit questions from our Football Guys Discord as well. JD McKissick or AJ Green in the flex PPR? What do you think there?
JD McKissick. I think JD McKissick's an interesting one in general. I mean, I have some hero RB teams, which is kind of the method that I chose for a lot of my teams this year. So I have a few of these pass catching running backs on most of them. And JD McKissick's someone I'm really considering on a lot of those teams as well. I mean, we just talked about Antonio Gibson. You're going to play him because it looks like, he will have to get touches. But from everything Washington told us prior to Brian Robinson being shot was they didn't want this to go through Antonio Gibson anymore, And so even though Brian Robinson, as a result of a tragedy, has been taken out of the lineup, I still think they're going to be trying to move it a little bit away from Antonio Gibson. I mean, by default, he's going to get more touches than he would have, but they made a huge effort to bring back McKissick this year, which we've talked about a lot on this podcast. And week 1, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll see how Antonio Gibson starts, but I think JD McKissick's a better start there than AJ Green.
All right, moving on to the next one. With J.K. Dobbins out, Mike Davis, Kareem Hunt, or Damian Harris?
What was it?
With J.K. Dobbins out, Mike Davis, Kareem Hunt, or Damian Harris this week?
Whew.
It is.
I'm going to say Kareem Hunt. I'm going to say Kareem Hunt. I mean, we're talking about two gross options in a Mike Davis and Damian. Wait, you said Damian Harris?
Yeah.
Okay. So full PPR, Damian Harris, Kareem Hunt. I'm still going to say Kareem Hunt. I mean, we're looking at another team like we talked about with Njoku earlier in the show too, the Browns. I mean, pretty shallow target competition there. There's really not much going on. I think they are going to try and play it through Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. We've seen Kareem Hunt be plenty productive while Nick Chubb's in the lineup too. So I like Kareem Hunt a little bit more there, followed by Damian Harris and then Mike Davis. I mean, I get the Mike Davis thing, but I mean, they brought in Kenyon Drake too. Like, we'll see kind of how they split up that backfield.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go a little bit more here. Let's see. All right, Cousins or Trey Lance?
Cousins or Trey Lance? That one's interesting. With this rain situation, with I think the Kirk Cousins matchup, I don't know, man. This is a tough one because I've been a Trey Lance guy all offseason, as you know. I don't love the weather going on in San Francisco. I'm going to lean with my guy. I'm going to stick with Trey Lance.
Okay. He's still going to run a ton. He's still going to run a ton.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Trey Lance. He's been my guy all offseason. I've been preaching to, draft him, and he's a great value. And so I'm not going to tell you week 1 to take him out of your lineup because I do think a lot of lineups are supplemented with a Kirk Cousins or a Derek Carr, a lot of Trey Lance lineups. But I still think you roll out Trey Lance week 1. We see what happens. If it really is some sort of disaster, we either blame it on the weather or we start
blame the elements,
or we start pivoting over to those safer quarterbacks.
We always blame the elements when we can.
We've got another one right here that is interesting. Cordero Patterson or Miles Sanders coming for our heart here. Zach asking us about Miles Sanders, but yeah, PPR Cordero Patterson or Miles Sanders.
I'm going to go Miles Sanders here. And I have a few lineups where I'm starting Miles Sanders, and I can't remember how many times I did that last year. It wasn't many. I wasn't starting Miles Sanders a lot, but I will say that the Eagles showed some commitment by trimming down the running backs a little bit more. Yes, they grabbed Trey Sermon. No, that doesn't mean anything.
He's out. He's out today as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
he's a healthy scratch. So they're rocking with Sanders, Gainwell, and Boston Scott. Okay, so 3 running backs are active. I would expect to see all 3, but with Sanders having a 60-65% role in this backfield. Look, the Lions, if they have any strength defensively, they don't have many. It is up front. It's worth noting. Aiden Hutchinson was the 2nd overall pick. Romeo Okwara is there. So you got some guys in that defensive front. But again, this is the best offensive line in the National Football League. The Eagles will try to establish the pass early, but they're also going to establish the run a ton. And because we all know they're going to run. You don't get, the number 1 rushing offense in the league by not running. Miles Sanders is your best running back on that roster. I would expect to see him a lot. And look, this is not only a contract year for Miles Sanders, it's likely his last chance to really show that he has juice.
Sure. Yeah.
Before he probably asks out or push for a trade this offseason. The Eagles don't pay their running backs. I would expect them to use him pretty liberally today and then work to establish the pass based off of the run. So take Miles Sanders for me.
Yeah, I'm going to say contrary to Miles Sanders telling the fantasy community not to draft him in fantasy, I think he's just tired of everybody giving him crap for his fantasy performances. When the Eagles were the number 1 rushing team, when they were successful, everybody's dragging him down for his fantasy production. If Drake London were out, I would have said Cordero Patterson just because the Falcons don't really have much else to do in that offense. But Drake London looks like he's active, and I'm interested to see how the Falcons offense is going to, run. I mean, Kyle Pitts, Drake London are the 2 real options in the passing game. Cordero Patterson, Damian Williams, and Tyler Algier are going to be the 3 in the backfield. It's just with Cordero Patterson, you're having to rely on him being efficient. I mean, I don't think he's going to get a lot of volume. He doesn't ever. Last year, we were really benefited with his efficiency and what he was able to do on limited touches, which could totally be the situation again this year. But I'm going to lean on Miles Sanders for the first week while he's healthy, at least in a good offense. And, what did he say? Kind of want to see him see a touchdown.
Start to get a touchdown.
Right, yeah, but I mean, those aren't sticky stats. Miles Sanders is kind of a home run hitter, so if he breaks free on any of these, I mean, he can get there and get you that touchdown. So I'm going to lead Miles Sanders this week while he's healthy.
All right, full PPR. Do you guys start Brandon Ayuk or Devontae Smith? Again, I'm going with Devontae Smith here. I'm fully against any part of the San Francisco passing attack with this rain that is pouring down on Soldier Field right now. Apart from the Trey Lance passing predicaments that I have myself set with. I don't know if you feel any differently about this, right? We're both riding Devontae here.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree with, being as down on all the San Francisco passing options because I'm definitely not as down as you are.
Just today.
That being said, I would take Devontae Smith, who I am wearing the jersey of right now. I think Devontae Smith's a little bit better of a situation. I mean, weather is not going to be an issue, and the Lions indoor stadium, as well as the Eagles are favorites in this game. I think they're going to be able to at least move the ball on offense. Devontae Smith should have a good matchup. From everything that I saw last night from some Eagles beat reporters, the Lions are people are expecting the Lions to play man-to-man on Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, who were two
they
guys.
Get wrecked. They'll get wrecked.
Two guys I think are going to have an advantage if they are playing man coverage, especially Devontae Smith, man. I mean, he's just a technician. He's very underrated. So I'm going to take Devontae Smith over Ayuk today, mostly based on the weather, because those two are going to be in a similar tier for me most of the year.
Yep. Last one, because we're going to get going here since we only have an hour before kickoff. With Tyler Algier being out, would you pick up Rachaad White or Isaiah Pacheco? This is a clear Rachaad White for me. Look, it is not notable for rookies to be officially named backups on team depth charts before the season starts. Rachaad White got that note earlier this week. Look, this is going to be a team that, with their offensive line struggles, they throw the ball to their running backs a lot. And, a lot of it's going to be Leonard Fournette. But again, there have been some rumblings this summer that they want to kind of take some of the stress off Leonard Fournette, keep him. They know he's a key part to their team. Mix in the rookie a little bit. Gio Bernard is there, and he looked a little down, and Keyshawn Vaughn has never been that good at football. So, Rachaad White is going to be a guy this year, and he's going to be very, very well used.
Oh, yeah, I think you pick up Rachaad White for sure. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco, we'll see what happens. He's going to be active every week, probably because he's a special teamer. So he will be active to play special teams, and we'll see if he's involved in the offense. But Rachaad White's somebody who I think you're going to see a lot of the sharp people, a lot of people that, are really invested in this are going to be paying attention to Rachaad White's touches very closely. And I think that if there are trends, if he's playing on third down, if there are, things that are looking positive, Rachaad White might be one of the biggest waiver wire pickups after week one without even like a breakout performance. Just like if the value touches are there, if he's on the field in certain situations, the sharp people I think are going to realize okay, we got to get on him early. So if you can get him before week one, and if he starts getting some touches as early as this week, you're going to be ahead of the game on Rachaad White. So
yep. But the last question I'm going to take comes from our Football Guys Discord. And with Kittle out, would you start Tyler Kroft or Logan Thomas? Tyler Kroft is obviously on the 49ers, or start Logan Thomas. 1.5 PPR to tight ends. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to go Logan Thomas here again, because it's the situation in Chicago for me that again is pushing me towards the other side here. And Logan Thomas does not look to be on a pitch count. They haven't said anything about it. And I just think that Washington is going to throw the ball. Wentz wants to throw the ball.
Yeah, and Wentz has done well targeting tight ends in the past. I mean, I'm going to be weird here on this one, to be honest. I hate your options. I hate that you have to start Logan Thomas and Tyler Kroft. That sucks. I would look at the waiver wire and see if there is anybody else, but I would probably lean Kroft. I don't know why. I just kind of think that, in San Francisco, outside of Ayuk and Debo, not much else in the passing game. If he's truly replacing George Kittle, he could be an option there. And Logan Thomas, as much as I want him to work out, I just mentioned Carson Wentz does target the tight ends a decent amount. Logan Thomas just looked really stiff in some videos that I saw of him coming back. And so I'm a little, curious to see if he's going to actually be back at full strength, or if maybe he does look a little bit different off this injury. I mean, he's in his 30s now. It's been kind of a short career for him at tight end because he was a quarterback prior to that. But big injury. He's been out for a long time, so I'd be interested to see how he's going to come back.
Yep. All right, guys. That's going to be it for us this week. We will be back in 2 weeks with another episode of HFF Sunday Live. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for asking your questions. I really appreciate having a consistent flow of guys in here. And enjoy your week ones, guys. We'll see you on the flip side. See ya next or in 2 Sundays. Peace out.